too. So look at it now. A label is like the heading of what you are doing with the input. Now let me explain the for. The for requires an ID attribute. Now, why it requires an ID attribute is because it needs to be tied together. It needs to be tied together, okay, in terms of the submission. So now let me put it as this. ID, that's the ID attribute. Now let's call this ID attribute. So now look at this for. I'm saying that it is for name. It is still for name. Now the ID here also, they must be the same thing, for name. So the ID is also name. Now if I save it, if you go right here, obviously nothing. But if I click here, now it can come alive. Okay, now you will see what I'm trying to say. Let me remove this. Let me remove this. Save it. Don't worry, you'll get it. Don't worry, don't be scared. Click on it. See? Did the input part come alive? Oops, I think I've clicked too much. Did the input part come alive when I clicked on this? No, it didn't. Now, let me make you get it. The reason why we need a for on the label is for you to pick the ID. So that when, let me save it, so that when I click on name now, the input box comes alive. Did you see that? So for is needed for the label, for the ID to be an input, for it to come alive, and they must be the same name. The same name, as in the same, whatever you type here. If I type A here, this must also be A. If I type B here, this must also be B. Okay? Did you understand that now? Good. Now this name is just the value, so that when they click on submit, it's going to go to the person's email address, and it's going to say the name is name of client. It's going to show it, and the person types in the name of client there. Good. Now there's another one that we require. Lastly, it is called, either you want to make it it's called required. Now look at this. It's Boolean required. Oh, was that right? What did I just write? Required. Okay, required. Now let me save it. All right, let's save it. Okay, you won't see what, except if you click submit. Don't worry, we're going to get to that later. We're going to get to that later. You won't see anything yet until you click on submit. Okay. Now, let's create it. Let's do it another one, right? So this time around, you will get it. Don't worry, you will get it. Label. Create the label of it. Tab, right? Now remember, the for attribute here and the for value here is going to match what the input's ID is, so that when somebody just clicks on name, the input comes alive. The input box comes alive. So now let's go away from this. Let's now take another input. Another input here is called radio. So input, let's try this. Input, then tab. Instead of text right now, this one is going to be called radio. It's funny, right? Don't worry, you see what radio does. Now you have to also put name. Can you see the process? Name. So the name is, let's say for instance, I want it to be what can I use? Let's just say D. Now after name, we need another attribute. What's the next attribute? Placeholder. Good. Now let's say the placeholder is let's just say day of the week. Okay, no, sorry, there's no placeholder for radio. Sorry about that. There's no placeholder for radio. Just watch. There's no placeholder for radio. Sorry. Now ID equals this. That's yours. A speech mark. Now the for and the ID are the ones working together. For and ID are working together. Did you get that again? So now let's say the 4 here. Let me make the 4 also day. Let me make the ID also day. Now let's save it. Go to your browser. See, this is a box. This is a radio. So if I click on it right now, see, radio. That's radio for you. So let's put something in front of this. Remember that input is self-closing. That means it doesn't accept opening tag and closing tag. It's self-closing. Okay. So now let me put something in front of this. Let's type it as the day of the week. Let's just choose Saturday in front of it. Save it. See right here, Saturday. So that means I'm ticking. Radio button means that I'm ticking Saturday. Let's say, for instance, you want to book an appointment. So let's now make the label say book an appointment. Book day to book an appointment. Okay, so let's go. Day to book an appointment. That's the label. Then we say Saturday. So this is like a form saying that, okay, first of all, your name, you type in your name. Remember, it's triggered by this. You can trigger it just clicking on name. It's going to trigger it. Now look at this also. It's going to trigger it. Now let me remove this. Let me say that it's not checked. Let's remove it. Let's uncheck it on radio. Okay, it's checked already. Was I the one that checked it? Yeah, I was the one. Okay. Yeah, I was the one that checked it. So the radio right here, radio allows it to be checked. Now there's something here that you can put automatic. It's called checked. It's a Boolean attribute. It allows the thing to be checked already without you checking it. So for instance, it's permanent there. I can actually go inside there and I should be able to uncheck it. I don't know why it's not allowing me, but I should be able. Remember, initially it was not checked. Let me remove the checked. Save it. Let's go back. Aha, see? I don't know why it went like that. So now look at this. Remember this, the label had an ID. Click. See? So I can click here just like this. If I click name, it triggers this because both of them, label had a 4 and the input had an ID. The same also, label had a 4 and the input has an ID. So I can click from the label and it's going to trigger the input. So that's why 4 and ID go together. 4 from the labels part and ID on the input part. Did you see that now? Good. Okay, there's another type of label. Did you notice that all these are on the same line? Did you notice it? What does that mean? In line. They are all in line.